Grand Prix in Jerez back in 2006. Fantastic layout, this Portimao circuit, just over 4.5 kilometres in length, 15 corners, 6 left, 9 right. First gear challenges at turn 3 and turn 13, and then the fast downhill plunges through turns 9 and 12. Real features of this Portimao circuit. Overtaking hot spot down the hill into turn number 1. This was Fabio Quartararo on Oliveira and Mir 1 year ago. Coming up later then in MotoGP, a sensational win of the historic first sprint. Pecco Bagnaia targets double success for Ducati. Tantalisingly close to sprint success. Can Jorge Martin take top honours for Ducati? Fast and formidable in the sprint. Marquez carries Honda hopes once again. And a nation expects as Portugal sporting superstar Miguel Oliveira hones in on a dream home podium. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Algarve International Circuit here in Portugal. We're all set for the Tiso Grand Prix of Portugal to kick off the main feature race action of this year's MotoGP World Championship. We had the first ever historic sprint yesterday, and what a Grand Prix that was. A cliffhanger, edge of the seat action, wasn't it? 12 laps that all felt like last laps, with reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia making the perfect start to the defence of his title. He took the first 12 of 777 points available in this year's championship. It's a marathon one, no question. 21 races starting right here in Portimao. Beautiful shots from our new drone camera over the main paddock. The Portuguese fans, well, they packed into the grandstands here in Portimao to see if one man can deliver home success, just as he did 3 years ago, back in 2020, as a KTM rider back then. Miguel Oliveira actually was close to the podium in the sprint yesterday. Third on the last lap when he ran wide. That allowed Marc Marquez to sweep on through to start on that historic landmark first sprint podium, led by Bagnaia. Ducati had an excellent start to their season with Jorge Martin in second place, who will be flying high at the end of our 25-lap Tiso Grand Prix of Portugal. 2022, well, that was all about Ducati domination, and they made a superb start to the action yesterday, although it was mixed emotions and mixed fortunes in the factory camp, with Bagnaia fast in the sprint and taking the first win, but his new Ducati Lenovo teammate Enea Bastianini sadly sidelined from this full-length Grand Prix. He's already back in Italy, potentially having an operation today on a fractured right shoulder blade in the fast and frenetic and furious action at the start of the sprint. Well, it went through all the sprint, didn't it, really? Bastianini was hit by Luca Marini's crashed at Ducati, and he suffered that fractured right shoulder blade, which keeps him sadly out of this opening Grand Prix. It will certainly be out of the Argentinian Grand Prix next weekend, and a doubt for the Austin Grand Prix in Texas. So no beast, unfortunately. There you can see confirmation on his Twitter feed this morning. I have a shoulder fracture, but I will come back stronger than I was. We do not doubt that. Speedy recovery to Enea Bastianini. Not the dream start he was hoping to his dream debut in the MotoGP World Championship as a factory Ducati rider. This was the moment where it all ended painfully yesterday for Bastianini. On the inside was Luca Marini. He said he was carrying 1 degree more lean angle. He made the exact same move on the previous lap against Maverick Vinales. You'll just see him there. Down goes the front. Nothing that Bastianini could do. He got a proper UFC body slam on that right shoulder. Frustration and a little bit of anger down in the Ducati Lenovo camp. And that was the post-incident for Bastianini, slow to his feet, and unfortunately there was confirmation after medical checks here in Portimao and in Faro. He has got a fracture in that shoulder blade. I'm delighted to say in 2023 I'm Matt Burton. Lewis Sotheby will be bringing you all the action from the commentary box. Down in pit lane, as always, is Simon Crafar. And after the sprint, Lewis, which certainly whetted our appetite for this main event, it's now time for the full-length feature race. And unfortunately as well, some bad news for Gas Tech 3 this weekend too.
Yeah, bruising Friday for Paul Espargaro, unfortunately, who had a very nasty crash coming through turn 10 during practice 2. Suffered a broken jaw as well as a broken bone in his back and an awful lot of bruising as well. As you can see on screen there, he was transferred to the Quirón Salud in Barcelona last night, where he will remain under observation. We hope that Paul Espargaro, if he's watching, is having as smooth a recovery as possible. We hope to see him back as soon as possible here in the MotoGP World Championship. There is the message from his Gas Factory Racing Tech 3 team. But as a result of that crash, Augusto Fernandez will be the sole rider for that squad this afternoon. Our sole rookie, of course, on the grid.
Yeah, Augusto Fernandez, unfortunately, a DNF in his first MotoGP start in the sprint yesterday. Had a problem with the gearbox on the warm-up lap. He had to start the race in second gear, and that just completely destroyed the clutch, and he was in early retirement, so not the way that he wanted to kick off life as a MotoGP rider. Portuguese fans, they were proud to be part of that historic first sprint race yesterday, and it looked like their big home crowd favourite Miguel Oliveira was going to be on the podium until there was that key late mistake in that tricky braking zone for turn 10. He ran wide. Marc Marquez said thank you very much. He came back on through. It was almost a dream start, wasn't it, for the Aprilia R&F team. Great to see the fans packing the paddock. New features as part of our new MotoGP format this weekend to engage more with the fans, to bring you closer to the action and to bring you closer to the heroes who you worship. There's the paddock hero walk. I've seen that about 10-15 deep, Lewis, when the MotoGP riders have been down there. Everybody trying to get a selfie and an autograph. There's the new parade straight after the warm-up session, which took place for the very first time this morning. All 21 MotoGP riders out in front of their fans. There were T-shirt, guns, some lucky recipients of some special Portuguese Grand Prix souvenirs. It was great to see, Lewis. You have to move with the times. You have to engage with your current audience, try and engage with a new audience as well. And I think we could see that the riders enjoyed it, and the fans certainly did, particularly those ones that caught the merchandise.
Yeah, there was a real bun fight in some of the grandstands over those sought-after T-shirts. Yeah, the fans here in Portimao certainly buying into the new look MotoGP for 2023. It was such a great atmosphere yesterday, particularly in qualifying one, when Miguel Oliveira made his way through that session to earn his fight for pole position, and of course fought right the way to the final lap for a potential sprint podium. He didn't go his way in the end, but the fans, perhaps buoyed by that, have come in high spirits today, not just cheering on Miguel Oliveira, of course, but expecting a thrilling 25-lap MotoGP race coming up.
Yeah, a lot of happy fans left the paddock at the end of play this morning. I saw a lot of people getting selfies, big smiles, lots of giggles. The MotoGP riders seemed to enjoy it as well. I know Jack Miller, he was loving it down there, posing for the selfie. So then Fabio Quartararo, unlikely you feel that he is going to figure prominently in a battle to win his third Grand Prix here in Portimao. He's going to start the race in 11th place. A little bit of a technical gremlin as well on his factory Yamaha in the warm-up session this morning. Quartararo took an absolute wallop, didn't he, on the first lap at turn 13 in the sprint from Joan Mir. An incident that cost Joan Mir a long lap penalty in today's feature race. Quartararo was all the way back in last place. He had a nightmare start. He said he had a problem with the launch device, went all the way back to the back of the pack when Mir hit him as well. It could not have got off to a worse start for Fabio Quartararo. He did actually very, very well to fight himself back into the top 10, of course. Now in the new sprint format, only 9 riders score points, so all that hard work and effort was in vain for Fabio Quartararo. He is fast here, Lewis, no question, with his previous record. He said he had excellent corner speed in the race and good rhythm. The problem is, so hard to overtake on that Yamaha, and so many damn fast motorcycles ahead of him.
Its pace was good, as you say. It was comparable with the leading contenders during the sprint yesterday, but unfortunately Quartararo had so much work to do after that first lap tangle with Joan Mir. He also had a technical problem this morning during the 10-minute morning warm-up, so it's been far from the ideal build-up for Fabio Quartararo going into this Grand Prix. Of course, it is just worth clarifying, of course, he does move up 1 to 10th on the grid here this afternoon as a result of Enea Bastianini's removal from the grid lineup.
Alex Marquez it was who took the final point up for grabs in the sprint yesterday. He clawed his way through from 13th on the grid to 9th place, loving life on the Gresini Ducati. Is the former Moto2 and Moto3 world champion. Felt like he paid for not getting directly into Q2, didn't he, Alex Marquez? He just missed out at the end of Q1. A poor grid position, well, we know it can hurt you in the full length race when you've got 25 laps to recover any lost time in the early stages, but in a 12-lap sprint as it was yesterday, very, very complex challenge. Fabio Quartararo then, inside the factory Yamaha garage, the traditional fist pump for all of his engineers and his mechanics, as this man could not have dreamt of a better start to the title defence than he made yesterday. He seemed to enjoy that sprint race, of course he did, because he won it, but Pecco Bagnaia just felt like in those final couple of laps he had the better front feeling than Jorge Martin. Martin just running wide. It was only a small mistake, but it just pushed him slightly offline on the exit of turn 5. Sweeping through on the inside was Bagnaia, and with 9 corners left of that sprint, you just never felt like he was going to relinquish that lead, Lewis.
No, this was the key moment at the end of the sprint on the very last lap of 12. Jorge Martin just leaving the door half open on the way through that tight left-hander, and Pecco Bagnaia was not going to say no to that. Through he went to take the lead and take maximum points, the 12 points in offer for the sprint victory, and he underlined his status as the man to beat in 2023. It looked that way through pre-season testing. He looked the class of the field. He set a ferocious all-time lap record, an official record of course, in testing in Portimao a week or two ago. Back that up, of course, was beaten to pole position, surprisingly to us all, by Marc Marquez yesterday morning, but he proved he had the pace in the sprint. Will he have the pace in the 25-lap Grand Prix this afternoon? This afternoon is where we're going to get all our answers. Who truly has the pace over full race distance in 2023? That man looks as strong as anyone.
7 wins and 10 podiums last year put this man at the summit of the MotoGP World Championship. The first time that had happened to a Ducati rider since Casey Stoner 15 years ago. He wants more, he's hungry for more. He's not going to rest on his laurels, Pecco Bagnaia. This man was, as we expected, pure box office, wasn't he, in that 12-lap sprint yesterday. One of the highlights, and there was plenty of them. Great to see a young fan there getting a special memento, an autograph picture from Marc Marquez. Was that overtake at the first corner? I'm sure we're going to get a replay of that very, very shortly. As Lewis mentioned, it was an unexpected but super Saturday for Marc Marquez. An all-time lap record in Q1. Another all-time lap record. 1.5 seconds his pole time yesterday inside Bagnaia's 2-year-old previous pole record. Put him on pole position for the 64th time in MotoGP, and of course with the same grids it means he starts on pole today. But this was one of the highlights. This was vintage Marc Marquez, wasn't it? Miguel Oliveira on the inside of Jack Miller. At this stage Marquez didn't want to go for this move, but he saw both of them just clip that bump and he said, well, I've got no choice now, it's all in, I'm going for it. Straight through he went into 3rd place. Absolutely brilliant by Marquez, and this was another key moment in the Grand Prix. Late heartache coming the way for Oliveira in that sprint. He was wide at turn 10 with the podium in his hands, but that mistake at turn 10, it allowed Marquez to sweep on through, and the Repsol Honda man, the grateful recipient of that Oliveira present, to take 3rd.
Watching that late three-way battle, I suddenly got flashbacks. Jack Miller and Miguel Oliveira will have certainly remembered a very similar incident to that on the final lap, final corner in Austria a few years ago, back in 2020, when of course Oliveira got the better of it to take the victory. This time it was Marc Marquez who had his brain in gear on the penultimate lap. He saw what was going on ahead of him. His racecraft is second to none, not just of course in the sprint yesterday, but of course in qualifying, able to time his laps, to be able to pick the right rider to follow. He followed Enea Bastianini to secure that pole position, which of course will be reflected onto the grid here this afternoon. And Marc Marquez, I mentioned yesterday he was going to be a nuisance to the Ducatis and Aprilias. He certainly was. The question I suppose this afternoon is how long into this 25-lap race can Marc Marquez hang around at the front?
Top 5, he said, would be fantastic in today's race. These two men, we know that they're going to be big players in deciding the outcome of our first 25 points up for grabs. As Miguel Oliveira, the fans eager to see what he can do in this 25-lap Grand Prix, of course, into a new team, Aprilia R&F. completely different philosophy in motorcycle, isn't it? A concept that he's not used to, the sort of conventional twin spire aluminium frame with the Olin suspension. He spent all of his previous 4 years in MotoGP at KTM on the steel trellis frame with WP suspension. Still kind of in that adaptation period, I guess you could say, but the signs very, very promising and encouraging yesterday. Crikey, that's probably one of the biggest fan flags I've ever seen in my life. That's going to take some holding on to in this wind around here today. As we expect, there are 88 banners, 88 T-shirts, caps and flags everywhere around this Portimao circuit, and it would be a great lift for Miguel Oliveira and for the RNF team, who really suffered a poor season last year. They split from Yamaha, didn't they, to join Aprilia, and that move has paid instant dividends, with Oliveira fighting for the front row and the podium yesterday.
They didn't have a Q2 appearance in the entirety of the 2022 season. They've already changed that one race weekend into 2023. Oliveira converting that in the end into 7th. He goes from the front of the second row. Luca Marini here on screen goes from the middle of the third row. We already saw what happened to him in the sprint yesterday, of course, taking out Enea Bastianini with that unfortunate incident into turn 5. He'll be out for a redemption of sorts here this afternoon. Everything we saw through pre-season testing and practice was that Luca Marini's got the pace to run somewhere close to the podium. Question, of course, now is, can he get a clean race up and running and enable his pace to shine through? Joan Mir, who also was in the wars yesterday in the sprint, of course, he got involved in that incident with Fabio Quartararo, initiated by Mir, and as you can see on your screens, due to irresponsible riding during the sprint, Joan Mir has been handed a long lap penalty for this afternoon's 25-lap Portuguese Grand Prix. This is why, as he tried to force his way up the inside of Fabio Quartararo, Mir went down. Quartararo had to run right around the outside and drop to the back of the field, but the stewards took a dim view of it and handed Mir a long lap penalty.
He appealed, and that appeal was rejected, which cost Honda over €1,300 as well. When you lodge an appeal, he felt like it was harsh. There was clearly hard contact. He felt like there was probably a gap was there, but Fabio Quartararo's airbag was activated. The steward saying it was over ambitious riding, causing contact with another rider. It dropped Fabio Quartararo to dead last. Quartararo actually was quite impressive coming back through the pack. He quickly worked his way through on Nakagami, Morbidelli, Rins and Gian Antonio. So it was a decent recovery, rewarded with no points, which is a shame really for Fabio Quartararo, with only 9 riders registering points in the sprint. 12th place then goes Alex Marquez. Of course, yesterday he started in 13th, but with the sad absence of Enea Bastianini, everybody behind the Italian, who was due to start this Grand Prix in 6th, moves up 1 spot. So I guess the big winner in that scenario is Maverick Vinales, who moves up from the head of the 3rd row into 6th behind Oliveira and Jack Miller.
We've seen signs of real pace from Alex Marquez through this Grand Prix weekend so far. Quickest in practice 1. He was also quickest in this morning's 10-minute warm-up session. Of course, on that 2022 Ducati, which swept all before it last season. And Alex Marquez, of course, departing the Honda, which, of course, his brother Mark continues to ride the absolute limit of. Alex Marquez took that final point at the expense of Fabio Quartararo yesterday, but he'll certainly be eyeing some big points here this afternoon from 12th on the grid.
Down the hill into this heavy braking zone for the first corner. Pecco Bagnaia took a heavy tumble there, 3rd gear as you hit the apex, about 110 kilometres, but before that comes a stomach-churning drop down the hill. One of the most scary braking zones on the Grand Prix calendar. Decelerating from 6th down to 3rd gear, you're nudging close to 350 kilometres. HRC president on site, Koji Watanabe. So Honda senior hierarchy are here on site this weekend. We've seen Shinichi Kikubo as well, one of the big technical masterminds at HRC. So they're not taking last year's shocking run, where they were the only manufacturer that went winless in 2022 lying down, are they, HRC? We knew they wouldn't, as we get these spectacular, wonderful drone shots tracking Fabio Quartararo down the pit lane. Beautiful weather, ideal conditions this to kick off the Grand Prix season in the MotoGP World Championship. Fabio Quartararo, if he was to make it a hat-trick of wins here in Portimao, one of the best wins of his Grand Prix career without question, as he moves up to 10th place on the grid.
And a good start is essential for Fabio Quartararo here this afternoon. As we've discussed, he does have the pace to potentially challenge for the podium here this afternoon. Of course, needs to get his points tally up and running for the season. Had such a poor start yesterday, largely down to a problem with his launch control on that Monster Energy Yamaha, which was the whole reason that he was back with Joan Mir in the first place. Mir, of course, who'd started 3 places further back on the grid. So a key start essential for Quartararo today. And even though it's a full-length race, a 25-lap race, rather than the 12-lap sprint yesterday, we are still expecting a frantic first few laps.
And when it's frantic, not too far away from that action, this man will be heavily involved, won't he? Marc Marquez on the Repsol Honda. 100th podium he racked up in MotoGP last October in that instant classic in Phillip Island, won by his new Honda stablemate Alex Rins. And always learning, always improving is Marc Marquez. More on that in a little bit as we just run through quickly the new revised for 2023 Michelin slick tyre allocation. It remains 3 options on the front, soft, medium and hard, but a slight reduction and a tweak to the rear tyre allocation. There'll only be 2 compounds available at every Grand Prix this year, I think bar Kazakhstan and India, for obvious reasons, as we've never been there before. This weekend it will be the soft and the medium in the allocation. Everybody, no great surprise, in the 12-lap sprint yesterday raced the soft rear tyre. I wonder if somebody might take a punt on that one in the race here this afternoon, Lewis.
Well, the biggest punt taken yesterday during the sprint came from this man, Jack Miller, who went soft front, soft rear. He just went for it in the sprint and absolutely loved his 12-lap race. He, of course, started from the second row of the grid with some brand new aero attachments on the back of his KTM. But Jack Miller, in many ways, the star of the sprint, responsible for so much of the entertainment yesterday afternoon. We were pretty stunned when we saw him set an all-time lap record on Friday afternoon. We were still a little surprised when we saw him break the lap record again on Saturday morning to qualify on the second row of the grid. But he very nearly, of course, led the sprint yesterday afternoon and challenged for the podium right the way to the end of it. So it has been a very good weekend, exceeding expectations so far for KTM. Let's get the pre-race thoughts of their team boss, Francesco Guidotti, who's on the grid with Simon.
Francesco, I know it's early days, but I've got to say it's exciting, the step you seem to have made at KTM.
Yeah, now is the moment that we will see if the step is real. The Sunday race is the main event of the weekend. So yeah, I think that's a good opportunity. So let's try to catch it.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks to Francesco Guidotti. Thanks, Simon. All part, of course, you might have noticed, we certainly did, we are extending our pre-race coverage in 2023. We come on air just under 15 minutes earlier, just to build up the atmosphere and build up the tension ahead of the full Grand Prix. That'll happen at every race this season. And as we mentioned, it was a real mixed bag for the Ducati Lenovo team yesterday, with on one hand Bagnaia brilliant in the sprint to take that historic victory, but sadly already back in Italy and at home recuperating from a fractured right shoulder blade is his teammate Enea Bastianini. Let's hear some pre-full race thoughts of their team boss Davide Tardozzi.
Davide, super sad about Enea, but I know your mind will be focused on the race right now, standing here next to Pecco. He looked excellent in the race yesterday. This one's double the distance. What are your feelings?
I think that Pecco will be very competitive. I think that it will be one of the guys that will play for the podium. So tough race, because I think that many riders will be fast in the second part of the race. So we'll see. I think Aprilius will be not so bad. The first 3 guys in the first row, the 3 guys in the first row will be sure very competitive. But yeah, I think that at least 5 or 6 riders will be able to take the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Davide Tardozzi. You just saw there walking to their grid positions, our top 2 men in the first sprint yesterday.
Here's how the grid looks then. Marc Marquez on pole position from Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. You can see their tyre selections on your screen. Miguel Oliveira, Jack Miller and Maverick Vinales all going for the hard front tyre on the second row of the grid. Vinales promoted, of course, by the absence of Enea Bastianini. We've skipped the third and fourth rows, but I'll tell you anyway. Marco Bezzecchi, Luca Marini and Johan Zarco will start 7th, 8th and 9th, with Fabio Quartararo promoting to the top 10 ahead of Aleix Espargaro and Alex Marquez. Joan Mir starts 13th ahead of Brad Binder and Alex Rins. Frankie Morbidelli, Taka Nakagami and Augusto Fernandez, who we saw having that problem at the start of the sprint. He lines up from 18th here this afternoon. Completing your grid on the back row, Raul Fernandez, who made good progress yesterday from the back of the grid on the RNF Aprilia, and Fabio Di Gianantonio, who's had a difficult weekend for the Grassini squad. He lines up 20th.
Can Marc Marquez make it podium number 101 in the full race here today? Let's go down to Simon Crafar on the grid with Alberto Puig.
Alberto, Mark was amazing yesterday, as we've already discussed, but today's race is double the distance. Can he make that magic over that many laps?
I think it will be not so easy, more complicated. It will be double laps. So yesterday at the end it was on the limit, but today so many laps. I mean, at normal race distance, it will be not easy. But yeah, he will try for sure.
And a quick comment on Joan, because his pace looks very good.
Yeah, I mean, Joan pace is good. He was really unlucky yesterday, but problem is that he has a long lap penalty. But we are sure that his pace can be, yeah, like more or less the pace of yesterday was 39, some 38 in the beginning, 39. But today you will see. I mean, we don't know the strategy of the team, so we have to see the pace. But let's hope he can have a good start and go in front.
Thank you, Alberto. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks to Alberto Puig. Marc Marquez then, can he go with the Ducatis and maybe disrupt their early rhythm to stop the likes of Bagnaia and Martin charging away? Aleix Espargaro and his factory Aprilia teammate Maverick Vinales, both of them exuding confidence about a podium challenge in this 25-lap race. They feel like they've done a lot of good work this weekend and in the test that came here a couple of weeks ago in Portimao on their long runs. Both feel like they've got the time management to hang on to some good grip in the final stages, lap 20 to 25 maybe. Keep a close eye on Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Vinales coming through. Vinales now promoted up to the back of the second row in 6, with Aleix now starting from the middle of row 4 in 11th place. Aleix had a really good strong ride in the sprint yesterday, actually coming from 12th to 6, although he wasn't a particularly big fan of the new sprint format, even though he was smiling at the end of it. He described it as a jungle and a bit like the film Gladiator, Disney. No mercy shown by anybody.
Yeah, it has to be said, the two factory Aprilias were probably the fastest riders on track in the second half of the sprint, so that will give them good confidence to take into this afternoon's Grand Prix. Of course, it's not been an easy weekend for the Espargaro family, so Aleix Espargaro will be looking to try and end that on a high. You might have seen a familiar face next to Maverick Vinales. He's back with an old crew chief, Manu Cazot, who of course was working with this man Alex Rins in the Suzuki team in previous years. Manu's now rejoined Maverick Vinales within the Aprilia team after working with him at Suzuki in his rookie MotoGP season. Alex Rins, we just saw on screen there, 15th on the grid for this afternoon's sprint. He finished 13th yesterday. He'll of course be looking to try and register his first points on what is officially now his 100th MotoGP start.
Jack Miller there briefly on your screens, asked about whether he enjoyed yesterday's sprint. He said absolutely, I had heaps of fun, as you knew Miller would do. He was always going to be a big fan of the sprint format. Jack Miller fighting for the podium throughout, and I think there was some unseen video footage, wasn't there, on MotoGP.com. Great grab by our social media team when the podium men, Marc Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin, were coming in the car from the podium ceremony on the grid to the press conference. They just basically said, that Jack Miller's crazy. Not really telling us something that we didn't already know, are they, to be fair? Jack, it's been a really, really positive start to life in 2023 on and off the track. The Dream P1 here on Friday for the KTM, fighting for the win in the sprint, and pre-weekend confirming some fantastic news that his good lady, his wife Ruby, is expecting their first baby. That's a nice touch, isn't it? A nice touch there from Pecco Bagnaia. Forza Enea. sentiments we echo in the commentary box with Enea Bastianini. Such cruel look. That's a real nice gesture. I mean, everybody kind of expects there to be a real brewing, simmering, big rivalry between Bagnaia and Bastianini. Of course, they're fighting for the biggest prize in motorcycle racing, but they can set that rivalry aside, and that was a nice show of respect from Enea Bastianini. Nice touch stat. Let's go back down to Simon on the grid. It was almost a fairy tale start, wasn't it, to Life at Aprilia for the Crypto Data R&F team. Miguel Oliveira fighting for the podium. He'll be in the mix again today, surely. Let's hear the thoughts of their team boss, Wilco Zilenberg.
Wilco was so close yesterday to a podium with Miguel in podium position right up until less than a lap to go. Give us your thoughts about your riders going into this race with double the distance.
No, of course, we're very happy with the performance Miguel did yesterday. Of course, it's a pity to lose that podium, but basically he did what we expected from him, and let's hope he can do a little bit better last lap today.
And Raul?
Yeah, Raul made a big step. Of course, when he started with us last year, his confidence was gone, and he's growing every time he jumps on the bike. And he did a great pace at the end of the race. I don't know if you've seen it, but anyway, he finished behind Quartararo on 11th, so which is already amazing, you know.
Best of luck today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Wilco Zilenberg. Yes, a little bit unnoticed in that short, sharp 12-lap sprint yesterday was the exceptional performance of Raul Fernandez, coming off what he said was one of his worst qualifyings, not just in MotoGP, but of his career. He looked all at sea and lost on Saturday morning, down in 20th place, but a real strong ride through to 11th. A young man who fell out of love with racing last year in many respects, and he lost his passion. That's all been rekindled and revitalised with that move over to Aprilia R&F, and Raul Fernandez looking for a top finish. Now then, it was almost the perfect start to the sprint era yesterday for Prima Pramac Racing, with Jorge Martin leading until 9 corners from the end. Can he go one better today? Let's hear from Prima Pramac Racing boss Gino Borsoi.
Gino, pretty much the whole motorcycling world knew that Jorge would be fast in the sprints, but I've also seen his laps on old tyres in the test were very impressive. What do you expect from today's race?
Well, the expectation it's high, honestly, because we did a really good run in the test. We use a tire for 32 laps, so front and rear. So at the last lap, the pace was so good. So I'm really confident about Zarco, and also because he did a really good test here in Portimao, especially at the first day. But well, after the sprint race, we found some problem on front tire, and maybe today he can beat. He can make something better. About Martin, well, everybody looking for Martin, but at the moment, as I said several times, we have to try to finish the race, to get point, to go step by step, because the championship it's so long. We don't need to try to win all the time, or try to keep focus only on the podium, because this is a big mistake. So he's confident, he's faster. Let's see what's going on at the first race, and then race by race, we will try to make something better.
Sounds like Jorge is lucky to have a wise head like you in his garage. Best of luck today.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Gino Borsoi. Good luck to Gino Borsoi and his new adventure as the team manager at Prima Pramac Racing. What a job he did for so many years. Multiple race wins and multiple world champions at Moto3 and Moto2 with the Gas Aspar team. So we're about to get our first pre-race grid ceremony underway. We'll have the Portuguese national anthem coming up shortly. There is the MotoGP tower. Pecco Bagnaia putting his name amongst some of the greats of our great sport last season.
Fabio Quartararo looking to try and add a second plaque to that Champions Tower. 4 different world champions, of course, in the last 4 years. Of course, Bagnaia succeeding Fabio Quartararo, who in turn succeeded Joan Mir and Marc Marquez 4 years ago. For the first time in the history of the MotoGP World Championship, the season starts with every rider on the Premier Class grid having a Grand Prix victory to their name. prior to this weekend getting underway, of course, we had 13 world champions on the grid, boasting 24 world titles between them. It is a star-studded cast for this 2023 MotoGP season, and our first full-length 25-lap Grand Prix is just 10 minutes away.
Fifth time we've come to this magnificent Algarve International Circuit as well for a MotoGP event. The 18th time Portugal has hosted a Premier Class. The first two actually were across the border on the Iberian Peninsula in Jarama and in Jerez in Spain. Nearly a 3-hour drive away from the capital city of Lisbon as we edge ever closer to what's going to be a pretty special and emotional moment, I'm sure, for Miguel Oliveira, with the Portuguese national anthem looming large as part of the now traditional grid ceremony that kicks off proceedings for the feature race. Blocking out any distraction, talking to himself in the zone. Not sure what he's listening to, maybe a bit of a motivational pep talk or some busting tunes, but whatever it is, Alex Marquez firmly in the zone. Of course, Gresini Ducati made the dream start to Grand Prix life in MotoGP last year with Enea Bastianini winning in Qatar. But we'll take a pause now for the Portuguese national anthem.
Heróis do mar, nobre povo, nação valente e imortal, levantai hoje de novo o esplendor de Portugal. Entre as brumas da memória, ó pátria, sente-se a voz dos teus igrejos avós, que há de guiar-te à vitória. As armas sobre a terra e sobre o mar. As armas pela pátria lutar, contra os canhões marchar.
A rousing rendition of the Portuguese national anthem from Rui Veloso on the grid. Formula One Supremo Stefano Domenicali leading the applause. Of course, the biggest show on two wheels getting underway this weekend. It was Formula One season, of course, 2 rounds underway, but one of the ultimate superstars in motorsport, Marc Marquez, gets set to start from pole position for a record 64th time in his career. A picture of concentration, laser sharp focus, and he will be eyeing up that first corner, the downhill plunge to turn 1. Of course, he was able to get there first yesterday before the Ducati soon took control of the race. Jorge Martin, 5th successive time he's qualified in the top 3. Qualifying hasn't really been a problem for Jorge Martin, but converting those into race victories has been the issue. Only 1 in his MotoGP career. Can he kick up the season with a first full-length victory since that memorable success in Austria 18 months ago?
Let's quickly zip back down to Simon on the grid. As we mentioned, a slightly reduced rear tyre allocation for this year's MotoGP World Championship. I wonder what the riders' picks are for this 25-lap TISO Grand Prix of Portugal. Let's hear from Michelin Motorsport Director Piero Taramasso, who's with Simon.
He is. Piero, after the sprint yesterday, I'd like to give hear your thoughts on this longer, more normal race tyre choice, because riders told me in debriefs both, they said 2 different ways. Only the soft for us, and then others said we really like the medium. So, your opinion?
Yes, the sprint race yesterday, he gave us a lot of information. This is very useful information for the full race for the Sunday. The choice he changed quite a lot compared to yesterday. Yesterday everybody was with the rear soft. Now you have all the riders with a medium on the rear. Only 2 riders, they stay with the soft on the rear because they'll try to recover some position, but the rear medium will be much better for consistency during the full race. In the front also they changed by just a little bit. The two riders yesterday they were with the front soft, now they are with the medium. And then you have a split, half riders with the medium front and half with the hard. So it's not a surprise, the hard is for the KTM, for the Aprilia, and the two Marquez brother. The rest of the field, they are with the front medium.
Piero, thank you and good luck.
Yeah. Thank you, bye.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Piero Taramasso. We are just awaiting final confirmation of exactly what all of the 20 riders starting this Tissot Grand Prix of Portugal have gone for in terms of their tyre picks. As soon as that information is filtered into the commentary box, I believe the Michelin press officer on WhatsApp right now is typing as we speak. So we expect to get full clarification on what the Michelin tyre choices are for the 20 riders then starting this 25-lap season opener.
The vast majority last season went for the medium front, medium rear combination. That was the popular choice in last year's Portuguese Grand Prix, although it was a very different build-up to the Portuguese GP last season. Of course, it was a very much a rain-affected 2022 weekend. We only saw a full dry session on the Sunday, so a very different build-up this year. Of course, they've already raced once this weekend with the exhilarating sprint yesterday, but we go the distance this afternoon, 25 laps ahead of us.
Pecco Bagnaia then has 11 MotoGP Grand Prix victories to his name. He has a sprint win in his locker now as well. Can he add to that tally here today? Sporting the #1 plate, the first time we've seen that in MotoGP since Casey Stoner back in 2012. No Italian has defended the championship since Valentino Rossi back in 2009. Ducati have never successfully defended the MotoGP World Championship, have they? Plenty at stake then for Pecco Bagnaia in 2023. He said one of his big goals for the future is not to take it easy now, not to take his hand off the throttle. He wants to be known as a multiple world champion. There is the aero addition on the back of Jack Miller's factory KTM RC16. Marc Marquez is all geared up and ready for action.